Okay, we're live. Thank you for another Nerd Stalker interview podcast. Good morning. This is Greg Valoria, aka Social Greg on Twitter for the Nerd Stalker Media Network. Today, we're pleased again to talk with Johan Gunnars, CEO and co-founder of Simple Day, which is an app that helps you simplify your life, as they call it. He's going to talk about scheduling for people who hate scheduling. We had Johan on a few months back, I believe in the summer, July, and he was traveling, and he was talking about simplifying your day with the Simple Day app. And last week we released an article that Johan wrote on scheduling tips for people who hate scheduling. And anyway, but anyway, one special day I just found out that Johan's birthday today, so it's a special birthday. So. I'm going to go out on a limb and sing him happy birthday to him because I think he wanted that from the Silicon Valley SF Tech here. So anyway, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Johan. Happy birthday to you.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Greg. That was all I was wishing for. It's like if I just can have this guy call me up and sing happy birthday.
Hey,
happy as ever.
Hey, if you could do this interview on your birthday, you deserve the minimum from me is a happy birthday song. So anyway,
I'm just a regular entrepreneur.
Thank you. Anyway, good evening and thanks for joining us here on Nice Nerd Stalker live from Malmo, Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, that's good. Oh, wow, I think. The last time we did it was in Germany, but now we're actually doing it in your hometown. So, let's talk a little bit about scheduling. You wrote an article on Nerd Stalker about scheduling tips for people who hate scheduling, and let's just talk about why there were some of the reasons why people don't hate scheduling, right? I mean, I think. As we're going to go down this list, and we'll talk about. I call these kind of fears because these are things we tell ourselves in our mind that we don't want to do it, right? So,
yeah.
So let's just go down the list and say the first one we talked about in the article was scheduling takes too much time and energy. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, can I take a step back? Because
yeah, sure.
There's a reason I write the article about people who hate scheduling. One reason is I myself is one of those guys. And I like to think of scheduling as medication for a healthy day for people like me. It's like I take it to make my day better, and it wouldn't work as smoothly without it, right? But I still don't like to take medication, right? Same thing with scheduling. And I think it's different parts that make the people really don't enjoy scheduling. Some people think it's the best since sliced bread, and some people think I really don't want to do that. It's just cumbersome and I don't like it. And the reason they don't like it is I believe is partly because we like to think that we're in control, right? I'm me, I'm in control of my day and so on. It turns out, and we know I'm actually not. I have a boss, I have a partner, I have a family, I have a lot of different commitments, and I'm not in control of my day. And that's one thing. The other thing is it's stressful, right? Because every time I open a regular calendar, an old time calendar, I just see a lot of gray and I see a lot of commitments. And then some people really like to think, well, actually, I believe I'm a smart person. They probably are. So I should be able to keep it all in my head. But the problem is when you have a job, or you have two jobs, you have 3 kids, you have 2 cars, and you have dogs and activities and friends and parties, it's going to break. The system is going to break. You can't keep it all in your head because there's too much going on. So I think there's a lot of different reasons why people really don't like scheduling or hate scheduling, I'll even say. There's a lot of people who love it, but some don't like it. And I think for those guys, let's just think of it as medication for a healthy day. Of course, just learning some easy techniques about scheduling is going to make it a lot easier and smoother to get through the day. So that's just a little background there, Greg.
No, that's good. You got me thinking about this, and I want to kind of discuss this just one more step until we kind of maybe give you some of your tips. You mentioned something. You know, I think I'm pretty good at it, but I'm not pretty good at it, right? So, as you said, there's many factors that'll affect your day, right? I mean,
Right.
and a lot of it could be family, a lot of it could just be a busy life. You're doing multiple things. And what I tend to do, and we're going to go this in the list, is that I'll have a rough idea of what I'm doing, and I'll put it in my Google Calendar. But what happens is that just like this interview, right? We got rescheduled because you were ill last week, right? And suddenly that slot now opened up, right? And I have to constantly, figure out how to drop in maybe another thing in there, but then easily put it into a place where I could actually see and manage it, right?
Mm-hmm.
On our smartphones. So I think that's where some of the difficulty is that I use my smartphone continuously to check on my schedule and check on what's happening next. That sometimes while I'm moving on the bus or on the street, I can't just simply add that thing to the schedule because I'm moving around, I'm doing a lot of things. So I mean, we're going to talk about that. That's not necessarily a fear, but it's one of the friction points sometimes for managing your schedule, right? So
Yeah.
But anyway, no, thanks for the background. I think it's a good context because I think we all could relate to it. So anyway, let's go down the list of I call them scheduling fears, and I like you to kind of I like to share your personal insight in how to solve some of those. So the first one you talked about in the article was we tell ourselves in our mind scheduling takes too much time and energy. So what do you have to say about that?
Well, I mean, the first question would be, well, what's the alternative? To be a little bit frank, I mean, you're not going to solve your life puzzle by not handling it, right? By not scheduling in it. But the thing is, try to keep it simple, right? So basically, what you need is just because there's so many thoughts and so much written within the field of scheduling, but it's typically written by what I would call productivity nerds, people who really love the zero inbox plan and just want to do stuff all the time. And I think we all want to get stuff done, but there's also a lot of people who actually feel, well, I am actually really productive already. I don't need to become more productive. My fear would rather be that I'm afraid of missing out on stuff, commitments I made to other people or for myself. So I think the ground plan or the easy start would be just to try to find a small weekly plan, just to see things over, right? So if you sit down on Sunday, just look at the week that's coming and see what are the main tasks, what are the big points, and how do I need to relate to that. So because just by doing it ahead of time, first of all, you're going to lower your stress. Second of all, you're going to get a better overview, so you more easily can calibrate. Not calibrate in the calendar, because that's going to take as much time regardless when you do it, but calibrate as an individual. Because one of the stressful things is also all this jumping forth and back in people's, like you said, like I was ill last week when we were supposed to do this interview, and you're like, whoa, I got a slot now. What am I going to fill it? Oh my God, what should I? So it's just trying to prepare your mind for different scenarios and what's going to happen, because it's going to make it much easier for you to actually have an enjoyable day instead of being super stressful. So it's a little looking ahead and planning for that.
You brought up something interesting. I think we talked about this in the last interview, is that I think a lot of people that we work with, especially technical people, not all technical people, I'm not generalizing at all, but I think a lot of technical people that I managed in project teams or product teams, always want to be focused, right? And you brought up something interesting, is that I think a lot of times they say it takes too much energy, but also they're not really thinking about the bigger picture, as like you were saying earlier, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, okay, well, let's move on to another one. This is a good one. I I had to think about this a lot of times because I don't do this, but I've heard people say this. I don't want to plan my free time.
Yeah.
I you know, again, it goes back to this control thing. I think you were talking about in this last segment of too much time and energy. What's your thoughts about this one?
I have a friend. He's my old roommate from when I studied at University of Pennsylvania. And he's like, I hate meetings. He's like one of those guys. I hate meetings. And the reason he hates meetings is not because they're meetings, but because they're unstructured meetings, and they don't feel like they get anywhere when they have meetings, right? So I think some people really don't like to have plans for their free time because they associate it with negative and bad feelings and of being in places they don't like to be, right? Because it's unproductive or it's not creative or whatnot. The thing is, you are totally free to have the opinion that you don't want to plan in your free time, and if that makes you feel really great, super. But if you want to get stuff done, if you want to, get the lawn to look nice or paint the house, might be a good idea to plan it. Another thing is also that if you want to do stuff with other people, it's usually a good idea to plan, unless you're 22 and you don't have any commitments regarding your own family and so on, right? You don't have a partner and kids and all that. But when you have partner, you have kids, you have a lot of commitments, very seldomly my friends can call me, or I can call my friends the same day and say, hi, you want to have lunch together? Because they're going to get like, well, actually, I have plans. I made plans with someone else or whatever. So it's also about if you want to have quality time with the people you choose, you probably need to do some planning. Or if you want to make sure that you do the stuff that's relevant and important to you, make some planning. Otherwise, half of Saturday is going to be gone, and then you put on the TV and it's like, whoa, this is a football game, and then it's 6 o'clock in the evening and it's gone. If you want that, fine. But if you want a different time of free time, scheduling is actually a good thing, I would say.
No, I don't, for me, I schedule my free time for activities that I want to do with people, right? Like you said earlier. And actually it makes it easier in a way because I could actually put, things that I do personally, that is my own personal time, into those empty slots, and
Yeah.
and I think makes sense to schedule actually your free time.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Really appreciate that. Then the next one, this is another one that's it's interesting because I think I was talking about this a little bit earlier. It's too complicated to stick to a schedule.
Yeah.
Talk about that one.
No, I think it's like all sciences, there's been a lot of writings about productivity, not to say the least in America. You guys are very good in productivity, in efficiency, right? Got to be effective, got to do the deeds and so on. So there's a lot of literature from the 40s and onward about how do you make the perfect system? How do you be the perfect productive person, right? Because scientifically, when you do stuff, you want to do it perfectly, right? The thing is, when you start, when you haven't had a schedule before or haven't gone into that, you really shouldn't start with the most complex system. Because I mean, if you never ran in your life, would you start with the marathon? You probably wouldn't start with a marathon unless you want to really hurt your body. You probably start with a small run, a mile, maybe mile and a half first time, and then gradually you grow it to a point where you feel you're comfortable with it or the way you want to have it. It's the same thing with scheduling, just keep it small and make it work for you, and then build as you go. Because if you, with anything in life, if you aim too high initially, most likely you're going to fail, right? Because the cost is so much higher than the initial gains. So that's basically that.
Yeah, not only the cost, I think effort, as you're saying, cost, effort.
Absolutely. For me, that's the cost, the effort. I mean, the personal cost, right?
Exactly. No, I get that. I know with my scheduling, you know, I'm almost at that point where I can't afford not to now.
Yeah.
And I think you and I are kind of the same, is that we have a lot of things going on, and those kind of commitments mean a lot to me, I guess, in a way. It's not about me. It's really about how I'm affecting other people in my life now. So that's interesting how you talked about it. Let's talk about the last.
Insight. That's a good insight, Greg. It's not all about you.
Yeah. I think that.
I'm sorry, man. I took the chance.
I like that. No, it isn't about me. It's about you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. And then the last one you wrote about is just, it's plain and simple. Scheduling's no fun. That's a funny one, right? Because I like to get your thoughts on the type of person that usually says this type of thing.
I think that this is more, scheduling is no fun. This is typically, I can relate to this stuff. I mean, I don't want to schedule my free time. Then at the same time, my two daughters, I have two daughters, they're 8 and 11. They dance on Saturdays, for example. One dances at 12 o'clock, another one dances at 2 o'clock, so it's a little forth and back, yeah? So then we need to schedule stuff, right? And it's no fun because it's Saturday and we should just have a good time. However, if we don't schedule stuff, it's going to break. It's not going to work out. So what I usually do is, to make it a little bit more fun, is I involve them a lot into, so what should we do this weekend? How should we put up the schedule? What do we want? What is important to us this weekend? We want to have dinner out, or we want to have meet some friends for afternoon coffee, or what? We can't do it all. We really can't. Sorry, girls. I know you love to do 100 things every day, but we're not going to do that because it's physically impossible. So it's also, in regards to them, it's of course also about setting the right expectations. But it gets so much more fun because they have different ways of looking at scheduling than I have, and I find new solutions all the time that I haven't even thought about. So usually the schedule becomes much better, and it's much more fun to do it just by involving them. Used to, before, I just did the scheduling myself and they tagged along, and now we do it together, and the results are really much better. So one thing would be just to try to involve other people, right? And also we tend to have ideas of regarding the scheduling. If I'm going to have this talk to Greg at 4 p.m. as it is in Sweden now, or 4:20, then I need to prepare 15 minutes ahead of time. Then blah, blah, blah. So I make the whole plan in my own head instead of calling you, Greg, and say, hey, we got this talk. Do I need to prepare anything? Or you say, no, don't worry about it. It's fine. Or you say, yes, you really do, because this is super important, Johan. I don't need that low effort thing. I need you to step up, man. Or I don't know what, right? But just by involving the people that's actually dependent or part of it, it becomes much more easier to schedule it, and the results become much, much better. Not just saying, we need to talk, give me a time, but how should we go about this? What's the purpose, and how do we actually work with it?
That's an interesting thing, because you talked about your family, which I think, for a lot of people, or most people, it's an important center of your life, but also involving coworkers. I know at our place of business, we put a lot of effort into aligning people about the meeting, or about what we're going to do. And, of course, that's important, but I think the benefits of doing that is important, right? It gets people on the same page of what we're going to do with the meeting. It makes that schedule important to them, of that meeting, everything like that. So I think you brought up some good points about that. I mean, involving other people is the key of making it quote unquote fun.
Yeah.
No,
and it's just like I said, aligning. It's about, what's the higher purpose here, right? If we take my buddy from University of Pennsylvania, who really hates meetings, I think if his boss would say, well, there's actually purpose to this meeting, it's not just because I think it's fun to sit in a room with you. We actually have an agenda and a thought for doing this, right?
Right.
And the higher purpose of the business is this, and this is why we're doing it, and what's your take on that? And then you can say, I think this is, or I think, now I get it. And just trying a little bit more of involvement makes it, because then it all of a sudden makes sense. Otherwise, imagine my daughters, if I just said, this is the schedule, bum, 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 now let's do it. And they're going to say, why are we, never mind that, let's just do it. That's not how you create commitment or fun. It's by involving people, right?
Yeah, I know from my personal experience that scheduling becomes almost robotic to me at times, and I have to remind myself that it isn't. Robotic meaning that, okay, all right, at 1 o'clock, at 2 o'clock, and I don't stop and think enough sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes about, okay, so today, first thing in the morning, I have a interview with Johan, and then at 9:30, I need to, go out downtown and take care of this other thing, right? And I think you talked about that in our last interview a little bit. It was just taking some time and actually looking at your day and stuff like that. And but before we close here, I wanted to get some of your last thoughts on how do you do it? What is your typical process of how you schedule your day, and what do you use?
It's I test a lot of different stuff, of course. I'm supposed to be a trendsetter, hopefully, not yet, but in the time to come. So I try a lot of different techniques. I think the only technique I don't try is like the zero inbox, super productive. We're not looking for that. We're looking to make it easier and simpler for people to get through the day. So it's more, do the stuff you already do, but do a little planning, do a little scheduling, do it intuitive and nicely. Like you say, sometimes when you're out and about, it's really hard to do it. It shouldn't be. It should be easy. So it differs. If I look at my current week, it's for me, of course, we're a company. We have 15 employees, so that of course comes into an aspect. It's a lot about meeting people and talking and discussing different issues. But then you need to schedule time also for when I need to work, not talking to my employees and our coworkers, but also for me to get stuff done, regard to stakeholders or marketing directives and so on. So I think typically I would sit on a Sunday. I would look at the week to come, and I would plan. Some activities are really time sensitive. Some are not time sensitive at all. And of course, since we put both meetings and reminders in the calendar, that's our thing. I'm looking at, for example, I need a new commuter card. I don't need a new commuter card on Monday. Tuesdays is just as fine. That means it can be pending. I don't need to schedule it right away. I can have it, on the side. So I know it's there, and when it makes sense, just pull it in, right? And so typically that's what I do. It's sometimes some things are super time sensitive, some things are not. And then sometimes I just need to schedule time off for myself or something else. And typically, for me, it's also about what gives me energy. What gives me energy is certain people. Certain people really give me energy, and some people really don't give me energy. They're more take it back or something. But I want to schedule time with people that give me energy and that I give energy back to on regular intervals. So I have three of those meetings this week. So it's also about looking forward to different stuff in your calendar, just like you do in your regular life, right? So your calendar isn't all the hard, the heavy, the cumbersome stuff, but it's also the fun stuff, the stuff that gives you energy and good stuff. So it's more representation of all the good and bad stuff in the same place.
Now that's some of the reason why you developed the Simpliday app, right?
Right. Because the reason we started with this is because both me and my co-founder had a tradition of putting reminders and meetings in the same place in the calendar, And the reason was to get a full overview, because the problem today is that there are so many channels. I mean, there's WhatsApp, Messenger, mail, blah, 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 and so on. And commitments and requests come from all different directions. And it's really hard to get a good overview of my communication, but especially of my commitments. So then we worked a lot with, okay, they should be side by side, meets and to-dos in one interface, and then also making it super easy to convert requests into reminders and to meetings. Like in Simpleday, one thing is that if you get an email, and I get an email from you, Greg, saying, hey, can we do an interview? I can just drag and drop the email and put it in my calendar, and boom, it's an interview. It takes me 2 seconds. If I would do it in my desktop, it takes much longer. If I do it in the regular calendar and the cell phone, it's a disaster. It would take me like 2 or 3 minutes, right? So it's more, for us, it's a lot about overview, because overview gives me the illusion of control. As you know, control is an illusion, right? It's something we always strive for, but we will never get there. But we can get the sense of control, at least. That I at least know what's in my calendar and what I should, how I can go about tweaking it over the week. So right now, I don't. Did I give a good answer? I'm testing different techniques all the time, I think that's something to do with my job, probably.
No. I think what you say is spot on. I think that some of the things that you had mentioned, and a lot of the reasons why you created the Simpleday app was to really. It's all about interacting with the world around you, I think, is the
right.
simple answer that you kind of gave. I mean,
right.
And that's kind of the takeaway I had from today's interview with you. Yeah, I know we joked about it. It isn't all about you, but really it isn't, right? It's about how you interact with the outside world and how it comes back to you too. And so I think that's kind of an important takeaway from today is that, a lot of the things that you said there are in a way, selfish,
But I know you can laugh, but I mean, I think almost all of us are exactly that way, because that's the way we've been taught, and those are the tools we have. And back in the days, when we look at my grandpa or my mother, like in the 70s, she would have 2 phone calls a day and maybe 3 meetings, and that was a busy day, right? And today it's something different. And we need to relate to it in a different way. And since there's so many interdependencies, Greg obviously doesn't set a schedule. I mean, I changed this meeting. You didn't change it. You're like, what the, that was a good slot for me. But then this happens all the time, constantly. Which means if you're not in control of your calendar, we need to make it much more easier to schedule things, change things, and go about planning in a whole different way. So we're working a lot with that, because it's not a one-man show anymore. It's a shared show with all the people in your network that have dependencies with your calendar and you have with their calendar and so on. So that's our challenge to solve. But we're working hard on it, and we have a good take.
Yeah, well, no, thank you. I appreciate your time, and God, thanks for sharing the Simpleday app with us the last time and actually this time, and really, really appreciate it. But anyway, let's close off the interview, and I really thank you for a lot of your thoughts. This was really a good interchange of sharing some ideas and some philosophies about, how we view our schedule and how, certain illusions kind of lead us astray. So anyway, tell us about how do you find more about you and the Simpleday app?
I think, of course, in the App Store, you can find more about Simpleday. And also we have at simpleday.com, we have a blog if you're interested in how to simplify your day. We have different day hacks and so on, small tips and tricks and whatnot to just make it simpler to get through the day. So I think that could be one starting point. And I think any feedback is super welcome. It's johan@simpleday.com. If you have, why can't you do this in the app and so on? Because we're all about learning. We're always trying to learn, trying to understand better and see how can we do stuff differently, because we really don't need to do what the big guys have done in the calendar system, because no more gray, no more boring, no more big systems. We want to keep it simple for you and your little ecosystem, right, of the people that's interdependent with you, to just go about your business and make the day flow smoothly. So all ideas on that are super welcome.
Well, that's wonderful. And everyone out there, you don't usually get the address of the CEO. You usually get info at simpleday.com. So he gave you his personal
How about that?
email just to give feedback to him. So that was wonderful. Anyway, Johan, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate your time, and especially on your birthday.
Thank you for the song, Greg. It's appreciated.
No, I usually don't sing.
Just as grateful, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I didn't hear any of the dogs in the neighborhood, Hal, so I guess I did okay. So
absolutely. Thank you.
Anyway, that was Johan Gunnars, CEO and co-founder of Simple Day, and he gave you some insight today on how to kind of get over some of your fears and maybe your thoughts of headaches of how to schedule your day. And anyway, thanks for joining us, everyone. This is Greg Valoria, aka Social Greg on Twitter, for the Nerd Stalker Media Network, where we believe in tech, startups, design, and you. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and be careful out there. Anyway, thanks again, Johan. Happy birthday.
Thanks. Take care.